Imagine asking someone a simple question and getting an answer that sounds perfectly normal. They smile. Their voice is calm. Everything seems believable. But what if that answer isn't true? The surprising reality is that lying is far more common than most people think. Research suggests that many people lie at least once or twice during a typical day. Some lies are small and harmless, while others can damage relationships, careers, or even entire societies. So why do people lie? Is it because humans are naturally dishonest? Or is there something deeper happening inside the human mind? Psychology has spent decades studying deception, and the answers reveal something fascinating about how our brains work, how we protect ourselves, and how we manage social relationships. To understand why people lie, we first need to understand an important idea in psychology. Lying is not just about deception. It is often about self-protection and social survival. Humans are highly social creatures. Our survival has always depended on maintaining relationships and social acceptance. Because of this, our brains are constantly trying to balance two competing goals: telling the truth and protecting ourselves from negative consequences. This tension is where many lies are born. Psychologists often classify lies into different categories. One of the most common is the self-serving lie, where a person lies to avoid punishment, embarrassment, or responsibility. For example, a student might lie about why they missed a deadline. An employee might exaggerate their progress on a project. Someone might deny breaking a rule even when they clearly did. In these cases, the lie is a defensive tool. The brain sees a threat to reputation or safety and creates a shortcut to avoid the consequences. Another type of lie is the prosocial lie, sometimes called a white lie. These lies are told not to protect ourselves, but to protect someone else's feelings. Imagine a friend asking if you like their new haircut, even if you secretly think it looks terrible. Many people will say something polite instead of the truth. In this situation, the goal of the lie is not harm, it is social harmony. But where does this ability to lie actually come from? Psychologists believe deception is closely linked to a cognitive skill called theory of mind. This is the ability to understand that other people have thoughts, beliefs, and knowledge that are different from our own. To successfully lie, a person must mentally simulate what another person knows and then manipulate that belief. For example, if someone lies about where they were last night, they must predict what information the other person already has, and what explanation will sound believable. This requires complex mental processing, which is why children usually begin lying around the age of 4 or 5. That's the age when theory of mind becomes more developed. Interestingly, research has also shown that lying actually requires more mental effort than telling the truth. One famous study by psychologist Aldred, a leading expert in deception research, found that lying places a heavier cognitive load on the brain. A person who is lying must constantly monitor their story, suppress the truth, and observe the reactions of the listener at the same time. This is why liars sometimes hesitate, provide too much detail, or change their story when questioned further. Another fascinating insight comes from research by psychologist Bella DePaula, who conducted extensive studies on everyday lying. Her research revealed that most lies in daily life are relatively small and often socially motivated. In her studies, participants reported telling an average of 1 to 2 lies per day. However, a small group of people were responsible for the majority of lies. These individuals were often more socially strategic and sometimes more comfortable manipulating impressions. This brings us to another psychological concept known as impression management. Humans constantly manage how others perceive them. We want to appear competent, kind, intelligent, or trustworthy. When reality threatens that image, some people turn to deception to maintain it. Social media provides a modern example of this. People may exaggerate achievements, edit photos, or present an idealized version of their life. Technically, these actions may not always be direct lies, but they reflect the same psychological motivation: controlling how others see us. But deception is not just about protecting reputation. Sometimes it is about avoiding internal discomfort. This is where the concept of cognitive dissonance becomes important. Cognitive dissonance occurs when our actions conflict with our beliefs or values. The brain dislikes this tension, so it tries to reduce it. One way to do this is by changing our perception of reality. Sometimes people lie not just to others, but also to themselves. For example, someone might justify cheating on a test by saying, "Everyone else is doing it," or "the system is unfair anyway." In this case, the lie helps protect the person's self-image as a good or moral individual. Interestingly, the brain can gradually become more comfortable with dishonesty over time. A study published in Nature Neuroscience found that repeated dishonest behavior can reduce activity in the amygdala, a brain region associated with emotional responses such as guilt. This means that small lies can slowly make larger lies feel easier. Psychologists sometimes call this the slippery slope of dishonesty. A person might start with a small exaggeration, then a slightly bigger one. Over time, deception becomes normalized. However, lying is not always easy or comfortable. Many people experience physical signs of stress when lying. Heart rate can increase. Voice tone may change. The brain's executive functions must work harder to maintain the false story. This is why detecting lies can sometimes rely on observing cognitive strain rather than body language myths like avoiding eye contact. In fact, research shows that people often maintain eye contact specifically to appear truthful. So what can we learn from all of this? First, lying is not simply a sign of a bad person. It is a complex behavior influenced by fear, social pressure, self-image, and cognitive processes. Second, most everyday lies are relatively small and motivated by social harmony or self-protection. But the danger comes when small lies become habits. When deception becomes routine, it can damage trust, relationships, and credibility. Understanding the psychology behind lying helps us recognize these patterns in ourselves and others. The next time you hear a story that seems slightly too perfect, or get yourself tempted to bend the truth, it might be worth asking a deeper question. Is the lie protecting something important, or is it simply easier than facing the truth? Because in the end, the psychology of deception reveals something powerful about human nature. Sometimes the biggest reason people lie is not to fool others. It's to protect the story they tell themselves. So here's something to think about. If honesty is uncomfortable, but lying slowly changes who we become, which choice really costs more?